Today's guest is Mike Black, President and CEO of ESB Financial in Emporia, Kansas. In our conversation, we're going to explore how a bank leader partners with educators, why teaching money skills matters now more than ever, and the kind of ecosystems we need to build for students to grow into smart, confident financial citizens. This is Queued Up, where we amplify the voices of educators with the science, soul, and story shaping education. You're a banker.
Yes.
But you have a title that I don't get the titles. What is your title? What do you actually do?
So I'm president and CEO of the bank.
Okay.
My overarching deal is just to make sure the bank overall functions well and is progressive and meets the needs of our clients and takes good care of them.
So does that mean you get to be like, yeah, we're doing money there, we're not doing money there?
That is kind of that. Yeah. So overall, that is kind of the gist of it. So.
Okay. And so what is when you climb to that position, what are some other roles that you would have to get there?
So I started out in banking as business development. And so I went from business development to lending. And then lending's kind of where I built my client base, took that on, and then became the chief lending officer. So I oversaw all of the lenders. And then from that point, the owner of the bank wanted to retire. And he said, hey, I want you to run this for me. And so that's how I ended up being president and CEO.
Okay. And I'm sure along the way, you had a lot of learning experiences.
A lot of learning experiences, a couple of really, really good mentors. And so, kind of helped you build and develop over the years. So,
and that's really what I want to hit in on today is that learning experience. And because, we talk about education and the positive things that are happening in education, but the reality is that there's only so much that can happen within the classroom. Oh. And then there's beyond the classroom. And we like focusing on businesses that take the opportunities to pour back to the community, to pour into schools, to offer programming, to offer lessons, to engage students beyond the classroom.
Yeah.
And so I really want to kind of hit on those things today of what is, you're in a smaller community, right?
Yes.
Okay. Yeah. And so I grew up in a smaller community. And so for me, everybody was involved with the local school district. Is that the way it is where you're at?
That is very, very much that way. At one point, we had a program. It was with an outside company, and it got sunset. And it's kind of disappointing for us because we really took it to a next level. We took our employees, and they would go into the school and perform this. And it was a computer program, and it was called Money Island. And once the kids could save the person off of Money Island and they understood debits and credits and how to balance a checkbook and how to use their debit card and things like that, it was really good. And we were kind of sad, and we tried to recreate it. Mm-hmm. And the cost involved to create the computer program was just monumental. And so we're trying to figure out what we're going to do next. But yes, that was a big hit for us.
I could see how I could benefit from that myself.
Very, very
game to learn how to control my finances. When you're in that small community and you're meeting with parents of students, you're meeting with teachers, you're meeting with district leaders, what's the impact a financial institution can have on a district?
So I think it's efficiency is probably one of the biggest things. And so, we try to make sure that we work really well with our district and spend the time to make sure that they can function efficiently and not spend any more money than they have to. Because honestly, you want them to spend the money on the education, not on the ancillary services that need to provide the education. And so, that's a big part of it. But education for us is big. We're doing an educational series right now, and it's really more adult focused. Mm-hmm. But we've started it with how to save all the way through to how to buy a home, how to start a business, how you deal with trust services, things like that. And so it all ties back to education, though.
It does.
So, yeah.
And, I think there's some different theories out there. Sometimes people are saying, oh, we used to learn about this and we just don't learn about this in public school anymore. We do know that public schools try really hard to make sure that kids have the skill set they need to be, ready to take on the world.
Yeah.
But if you could teach an elementary student, so say, 5-year-old to 12-year-old, one thing that would help them start on that trajectory of being a wise investor or a wise person with their money, what would that be?
It would all be focused on money management and not just how to save money. I mean, saving money's a portion of it, but how do you get money to work for you? And I think that
Yes.
would be the key. I mean, whether you buy real estate or whether you invested in your business, whatever your business may be, the efficient use of money, capital is always the hardest part of your business. And so, if you could teach young kids how to make the most of that, I think it would be a huge game changer.
I think so too. And they learn very young
Oh,
that
yes.
money does something.
Oh, yeah.
So they've got that concept down. One of the things that I used to do as a teacher is I would have reinforcement systems in my classroom. And I figured out really quickly my focus was special education. So sometimes my students would have difficulty remembering that a quarter was 25 cents and that a dime
Oh,
was, 10 cents. And so what I did was is I used it for reinforcement. And so it was play money, but
yeah.
they would earn money from me for turning in their assignments, for pushing in their chair, for being kind to their friend.
Oh, my. I
And
like that.
so I built this whole concept of money
Yeah.
helps you make good choices.
Yep.
But then it also, I tried to work in there, like, let's learn the value of the money. And then we would have a store and
Yes.
they would get to go to the store and buy
And
things
buy
that they
stuff.
wanted. But I did that with littles, 3-year-olds, 4-year-olds. I
Oh, yeah.
started it young because I taught early childhood too.
Yeah.
Kids love it.
They love it, and then when they get out in the world, they truly know how to do that, and I
Yes.
mean, it was a big deal, so, yeah, money management needs to start way, way early.
Yes. And then by the time we're in middle school, that we're talking 12 to 14, somewhere around in there. I mean, kids have access to debit cards. I didn't,
Yeah, I
but
didn't, but they do
but they
today. Yep.
do. So when we think about that age group, what's important for kids to understand and what's important for educators to be sharing with kids?
And back to that same concept of money management, I think it's how you can make it work for you. So if you take that and figure out, I need to pay rent, I need to pay utilities, and what it's truly going to cost you to live, and how you manage that money through the process, I think would really help them as they go into life. A lot of people I see now have their kids manage that throughout their process, and so it's like, okay, you earned your allowance, but now you have to go buy your school clothes and you have to do things like that with it. So it's
Right.
not just, oh, you can go buy this toy or whatever. It's you're actually
Disagree. Yeah.
buying something that has relevance in your day-to-day life. I think that's really key. But I like your store thing. That's having a store in the school
It
would be
was
awesome.
it was great, and then it motivated the kids to do what I needed them to do, which was be kind to their friends
Yeah, be
because
kind
they
to
were
their
gonna get
friends.
paid for it, and
Yeah.
then they got to learn to budget and things. And I'm probably gonna date myself a little
Oh,
bit, but when you were talking about helping kids understand how to budget and things, it reminded me of Claire Huxtable on The Cosby
uh,
Show. There was an
Cosby.
episode
Yeah.
where she was charging rent, and I remember to her kids that she's like, "Oh, no, 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 this costs money. You're gonna be paying rent." And so they'd had an allowance, and that's the way she did it, but I immediately thought of that episode when you
Oh,
said that.
that's actually really awesome. I
It
like that.
you
You
know
could really play that into the school and have them buy their lunch and,
Absolutely.
on a daily basis and build that into school as life and say, okay, you're gonna have this much and this is how much you're allotted. What are you gonna do with it
Right.
to manage your life at this age?
And I think if they learn it young,
Oh.
it's gonna change the trajectory of their
Oh,
whole life.
I agree. I mean, the things you learn young, if you take it and evolve with it, I mean, you got to be a lifelong learner if you're going to live well in this world. And so I think that's
Absolutely.
important. So,
Before we continue, this episode is sponsored by Q360 Workforce Solutions. If you're a leader listening, you already know the problem. Q360 helps districts get ahead of the staffing and support gaps. This isn't about looking good on paper, it's about keeping schools steady. All right, back to the conversation. So when we talk, we've done elementary, middle school, now high school. We're talking 15-year-olds to 18-year-olds. What's your best advice from a financial perspective?
wow. I started my kids early with money and said, okay, you've got to manage this throughout the time. So they had accounts when they were like 10 or 12 years old, and they knew exactly what they had to do with it, and always made them have twice as much as anything cost if they wanted to buy it.
I like
And
that
so,
rule.
if you had this toy, and a lot of times by the time they saved up enough money to buy the toy, they forgot what toy they wanted.
Right.
So they'd saved up the money, and their thoughts had changed. And so, it's a good lesson as you go through. It's
Sure.
how you, again, it's the same concept. It's money management over time.
Yeah.
And if you can do that at a young age, it plays right into that middle school and then high school. And then they get the responsibility of, hey, it's time to get a car. And you don't just get a car, you have to buy a car. And that concept, I think, can really play well in life if we enforce it.
Yeah, my uncle passed away years ago, but I remember him pulling me aside when I was about 15. He told me, he said, if you put $50 a month in a savings account, when it's time to retire, you'll have over $1 million.
Yep.
I didn't listen to him.
Yeah. A lot of people don't, but it's very true.
Well, I'm 50 something, and I wish I had listened to him.
Oh, yeah.
But I think about those high school years, and they're so formative, and kids do have access to money more.
Yeah.
It's just they can pick up so many jobs, and there's so many ways to earn money. It's like, what do we do, even as educators? What do we do to help prepare them for that next step?
Yeah, and I think even simple things like teaching them about compound interest. So
Yes.
if you could have learned, oh, I put $50, but it's not just my $50, it's $50 plus interest, and it earns something for me long term, then it makes them think very differently about that. So,
He told me.
oh, yeah.
I just didn't want to put $50. I was a saver.
Oh, yeah.
I saved. I graduated from college with like $2,000 in my savings account.
Yeah.
No loans and $2,000. So I was a saver,
Yeah.
but I wanted to spend my money on other things.
I know. We all want to spend money on the fun part of life, but
Yeah.
but by the same token, that early money management, I think, is the key with kids.
And I do remember I had a high school math teacher that taught. He would say all the time, money grows exponentially. And, he would talk about the compound interest and all that kind of stuff. So I don't have any excuse.
Right.
I had the education all along the way. I just, I was smart too, but I just had other priorities, and that's the way I ended up doing it,
And I think everybody's going to have priorities. I mean, there's no two ways about that. And some people just, their mind works on how am I going to make it work for me, and how do I get what I want? And so.
I'll tell you what, though, my uncle that I mentioned, he was actually a school teacher, and his wife was a school teacher. And this was a long time ago in Oklahoma. The salaries for school teachers in Oklahoma were really low. They're not even great now, but they were really low then. And he did die a multi-millionaire.
Yes.
Off of his school salary. He did some other things in the summer. He'd build a house and, did some things like that. But, I look at what he accomplished, and I was like, oh, if I could just get my kids to listen more than I listened.
I know, and I'm not sure I'm the good advice on how you get them to listen, but if you can find something that interests them. That's why I felt like the game that we had was so good, because you got way better attention out of I'm playing the game to get an end result. Then they can see how that game and that end result leads into life, and the money in the end result. So,
and I think what you're saying is key. Until they have that intrinsic motivation to do it for their own reasons, you have to make it fun. It has to be a good learning experience. It's got to be exciting.
Yeah.
That's the reason the store worked, and I would pay the kids the money because they got to cash it in. Sometimes they weren't even buying tangibles. They were buying time to eat lunch with their favorite teacher.
Yes.
Things like that, which kids love.
Oh, yeah. No, it's just what are you spending it on? And it doesn't have to be a thing.
Right.
It can just be time. Yeah.
We even had special chairs, like different types of chairs, and they could spend their money to sit in a special chair for the day.
Oh, that's a lot.
So we had layers upon layers of getting incentive. And then I took it to one program where the kids were in an outside placement. So they had more behavior challenges. And we used it there. And it was really fun watching it there because they had all these behavioral challenges. But we started talking to them about saving their money. So we had some big ticket items. One of them was to buy a pizza party for your friends.
Oh.
And so they would have to save. And so we would put their money over in a savings account, and we would be like, okay,
That's interesting.
you could probably spend 25 on something, like some candy or something.
Yeah.
But if you're wanting this pizza party, you better put some money in your savings account. And that I saw really great results with that.
See, and I think that's starting that to be impactful, like your uncle is explaining to you, would help when you think of the $50 a month over time. If they could see that and say, hey, in a short time period, I can have my pizza party.
Right.
Very impactful.
So it was tangible. They knew if they saved just long enough that they were going to get to bring a big party to their friends, which was highly motivated for them. Yeah.
Get to be the king for the day. So.
Exactly. And they love that. I'd also let them buy extra outside time for their whole room.
Yeah.
I would be like, okay, here's what we're doing. There's extra time. And so I think there's some innovative ways we can get kids thinking about finances and money and things. But if we think about an institution like a bank and the way they partner with districts, there's so many ways a bank impacts students. What are some of the ways the bank that you work for have impacted the local district where you're at?
And I think it's the time that your employees get to go spend. We have a program where they can spend 4 hours out volunteering. And so we have a lot of them go in and do junior achievement projects in the districts, things like that. And so I think that's important where you get all of your employees, because it's just like you probably listen more to your uncle than you did your parents.
Oh,
so if
for sure.
If you have that outside individual, i.e. the people from the bank coming in and teaching the process, they're going to listen to them more than they listen to their parents.
And there's a little bit of prestige when you're coming in from the outside. The kids are like, oh, especially if you come in a suit, that means you are somebody.
Yeah. We don't wear suits anymore.
You don't?
This is about as dressy as I get anymore. So, yeah.
I can appreciate that.
Yeah.
Has your local bank done any project-based things with the district where you've been maybe the funding source, or not even local district, but any districts?
We do sponsorship type scenarios with them. And so, that seems to be, and I'm not sure that's always impactful to the kids as much as it is to the parents. But so, yeah.
But you know what? This is what we're learning.
Yeah.
The holistic approach to a child.
Yeah.
If a parent is struggling with finances, it impacts that child's education. If there's not dinner and they go to bed hungry, they're going to be impacted tomorrow. If they are continuing to get relocated because we can't secure a mortgage and we're paying high rent and things like that, like all of those things impact kids.
Very true.
And directly impacts their education.
Yeah.
And so I think that I really believe teachers are so willing to pour into kids and do more about finances, but I'm not really sure that we know as educators how to make the biggest impact.
Yeah, and that's tough.
Yeah. And it can be overwhelming because you have your curriculum you're teaching, but then you have that desire to, I want my kids to be in a better place than I was. My uncle wanted me to understand more about finances, so he poured into me. So we want that, but we don't know how.
Yeah, and that's a tough one. I still go back to the game concept.
Yes.
In today's world, I think that anytime you can play a game with a reward and have the bank do the reward, that's a great scenario.
For sure.
So.
Well, I do have, that was just kind of like, hey, let's talk about how bank and education and all of that relates. But I do have some questions that are going to dig a little deeper into the community and the partnership between a financial institution and a school district. So you've talked about that banking is about relationships. And what does that look like in a school district context where budgets are tight and needs are high?
I think it's the more you get your employees involved, and I'm talking specifically from the bank in the district. So we try to push them to be on the PTOs and the school district. So we've got one of our employees that's on the school board, and we give them that time to volunteer to go do that. And I think the impact that you can allow them to have individually to go to all the different schools. I would venture to say at some point we've had an employee that's been on the PTO or the school board throughout the whole district, and the PTOs, and the parent-teacher organizations in every little school throughout our community can be really pretty impactful.
Oh, I'm sure. And when you're in there, rubbing shoulders with everybody, there's a lot of learning that goes on
A
both
lot.
ways.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And you teach the kids. I mean, that's one of the reasons, in my opinion, why kids do fundraisers. They do fundraisers so they can see, hey, if I go out and I sell these pies or I sell these trash bags, that's a big deal right now. You sell all this stuff, that's how I get to go to this program or
Sure.
whatever. And if you can match that into the bank. And so Emporia is big on match day. And so there's an organization that puts up a certain amount of money, and if the community will match it. And so we always try to be part of match day and
Okay.
get kids to do things like that. I think would be very impactful in the district. So they have to work a little bit for something and get a match off of it.
I like that.
Yeah.
I think it's always great when we can get kids invested
Yes.
personally in what we're doing the community wise.
Yeah.
So from your seat, your viewpoint from a financial institution, what's one habit schools practice that families could copy at home with finances?
Wow, that is a tough one.
I'm trying to stump you. Actually, this is my own personal thing. I'm going to learn everything.
So, you know, that's interesting. I think consistency. So you technically, when you go to school, you get a very consistent experience. The kids go to a certain class every day. They have structure. So I think if they could learn through that, if businesses and people in general could say, okay, if I can have structure in my life and I can have consistency in my life, it'll change me financially.
Yeah.
And so the districts, I think, do a great job of structure and consistency and what they do. And so
Okay. Expand a little bit more. Like, what's that consistency? Why does that translate to financial?
I think consistency translates in anything. So if you go work out every day, you're going to be healthier. If you manage your finances every day, you're going to be more financially healthy.
You have to do it every day.
Every day.
Okay.
I'm a 4:30.
I'm gonna listen.
I'm a 4:30 guy
4:30 in the morning.
every morning.
And is that when you manage your finances?
No, that's when I get up and exercise and get my
okay.
mind right to go manage finances.
Okay.
So, but it's
So
consistency.
daily.
So
Okay.
everything for me is a consistency. Every day is consistent. So if you have a consistent experience for the child in school, that's a great experience for them.
Yeah.
Then we need to take that on to finances and home and all of that. So that's what I think the districts do really well at, is a nice, consistent experience for the kids.
Honestly, that's like a game-changing thought for me.
Yeah.
I never thought about looking at my, managing my finances daily. It was like a monthly, monthly, when we used to get the bank statement and reconcile on the back.
Yeah.
It was monthly.
That was monthly. But
So that's
but now
game-changing.
you have an app, and you can manage your finances minute by minute. I mean, every time I
That's
swipe
true.
my debit card, I get a notice on my phone that says, this is what you spent.
Does it say this was not a good idea?
Well, it should. And really, it even says on there, hey, I put a notice on mine. If my account gets under X amount of dollars, I get a notice.
Yeah.
And so it helps you manage it consistently. And that
Right.
consistent money management, I think, starts like in education, because the kids get a nice, consistent experience.
You know what? And I appreciate you bringing that to light, because teachers do work really hard on
Oh, yeah.
consistency. And sometimes we forget the hard work we're doing. We forget like the payout, but that is a direct payout. I mean, literally, we're talking about money. It can impact finances.
Oh,
And I never thought of
definitely.
that.
But you put a teacher in there that gives a kid a consistent experience, the kid gets more out of it, I think.
For sure.
And
We know
so,
consistency is good.
it's a great thing.
So taking that into the financial side of life, yeah. I never thought of that, but that's pretty cool. So we talked about the money island, and if you don't have like the software, when the program got sunset, what can families do to ensure that their kids are having fun while they learn?
And I think it's like when you do money, raise money for school
Yeah.
items, it's make sure the family puts the effort into saying, this is why we're doing this and this is your end result.
Sure.
And they get to go on this field trip, or they get to go on this, bigger experience with school if you raise that money. And I think that's the impact but I think it's not just, oh, I sold these pies. It's, I sold these pies and I raised this money. Now this money goes in to help everybody get to have this experience. And that experience, if it can be impactful for them, they can realize how that associated back to money, and
Find
it
it back.
takes it into life as you go on.
For sure. Yeah, I think that's a good point. I know that my kids were always fighting really hard for that limousine ride
Yeah.
that they would offer on those fundraisers.
Yeah.
You get a certain level, you get to ride in a limousine.
Oh, wow. I don't remember my kids getting the limo thing, but yeah. But it was cool because you had and there was always a little contest, and
Yes.
people like to win. And so
for sure.
you have that little contest and you put that out there and say, hey, does Jimmy get to do this, or does Sarah get to be the number one? And you put a leaderboard. I mean, I have a leaderboard at the bank, and our chief lending officer, he puts a leaderboard every month who's number one in lending. And so it's always a little contest, and you got to make it kind of competitive. So
It's
I think
a little bit of a
competitive,
game.
competitive edge in school.
You know, you've touched on something that I never considered as a teacher, the educational opportunity in the fundraising. I'm just going to be real honest. When my kids came home with a fundraiser, I was cringy. I was like, oh, they're going to beg me to take them door to door tonight.
Yes.
But as an educator, it never dawned on me that I could take that experience and turn it into a lesson within the classroom.
Put it into the classroom.
Yeah.
100% agree with that. If they would put that into the classroom and say, hey, look, you raised the money and this is your end result and this is how we're going to manage it, I think that'd be awesome.
I think you might be onto something for real.
That's a really good deal.
Fundraisers are every year, and they're multiple times a year.
And they can be kind of tedious.
They can be.
And so if you turn it into a learning experience, that would be awesome.
Yes, I love that idea. We may have to collaborate after this to figure out what that looks like.
And then if we could get sponsors to provide interest, so it's almost like a match.
Yes.
And the kids could see that from the outside and get interested. That's what we need to do. That would be cool.
That would be cool.
Yeah.
And then that teaches that money grows exponentially concept.
Exactly.
Because it is a little hard to get kids to understand that. It's not quite as tangible because, I mean, what are we drawing in savings accounts right now?
Yeah. I mean, they're very minimal.
Like 2%, something like that. So it's really hard to show a kid, hey, you had $5 last year. This year you have $5.25.
Yeah. Oh yeah. No, that's very hard.
Yeah. So I do like that idea. At the beginning we talked about elementary, middle school, and high school. But I have a specific question about like middle school age. If an 8th grader learned just 3 money skills that would be life-changing, what would you recommend?
Well, first of all, 8th grade is 7th and 8th grade is the worst time in school. Was for my kids, and it was for me personally. So that's a really tough question. So if you're going to try to get 3 things, I would really put that back, and I keep saying this, but how money works for you. So money over time. And also thinking if we could get kids to start their accounts in school with every teacher, and they have accounts in kindergarten and 1st grade and 2nd grade, by the time you got to 8th grade, you could say, look, this is what your account has grown to if you would have saved. And so it's a exponential over time. So I think what your money can do for you over time would be number one, and buying things that are, and this is tough, but I think by the time you get to 7th or 8th grade, buy appreciable assets instead of depreciating assets.
Okay.
So, you buy a house, the house typically goes up in value. You buy a car, it typically goes down in value.
Right.
So it's what you spend your money on would be, I think, very impactful for kids at that age as they're starting to realize there are truly things out there. And this is why mom and dad bought a house, and why mom and dad maybe bought another house and people rent it or whatever. But it's how can you teach the kids over time? And if we could do that from kindergarten all the way through high school.
I appreciate the conversation we're having, and I feel like we need to have more conversations like this because, I mean, I taught math. I was an elementary teacher, so I taught math, and I had some ideas about what to teach and why to teach, and you have your curriculum.
Oh, yeah.
But getting your perspective, I never thought about, not even with my own kids, I never thought about teaching them about things that appreciate and things that depreciate.
Yes.
It just
And it's literally a mindset. Do you
Right.
spend money on something that grows or spend money on something that doesn't?
For
And
sure.
so, yeah.
I think I have a lot to learn from you, Mike.
Hey, well, I don't know. My grandpa was probably one of the best money teachers for me, and this is getting way out there, but he would buy what we call bucket calves, and he would buy an inexpensive 2 or 3 day old calf, and he would bring me milk replacer, and I had to feed the calf.
Oh.
And so I fed the calf. If I kept the calf alive in time, we sold the calf. Half of it went to him, so he got his money back for what he paid for the calf and the milk replacer, and the other half was mine. And then that's how I earned money as a little kid. But I had to get up early every morning and go feed my calf, and I had to feed my calf again when I got home from school. And then it didn't take me very long to try to tell Grandpa, hey, I'd like 2 or 3 of those, because if I'm going to feed one, I can feed three.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so, but that was big money management for me when I started and I was a kid. And so it's home and it's school.
Yeah, it takes everybody.
Oh,
It really
you got to
does.
have everybody involved.
And that's the reason I appreciate that your bank focuses on community, because it's that, again, holistic approach, community,
If you invest money in your community, it will pay you back, I guarantee you.
for sure.
Yeah.
So another question I have is, you've grown with small businesses through ups and the down cycles. And what business playbook would you say best transfers in a classroom?
So I talk a lot about lifelong learning.
Mm-hmm.
And if that business invests in themselves, that they will win far more. So it's the same deal in education. If the kid will invest in themselves and put the time in to read extra and work on their math more than just the time they spend in school, it's the investment in themselves that will win. And that's where you see the people
Yes.
that really win. They invest in themselves.
Yes, and you did. I remember reading some information that you had shared, and you were talking about investment into yourself and
Yep.
that educational experience.
It is.
And you're right. That doesn't is it return void? Is that the phrase? Like, that does not return void. I mean, you get return on your investment when you invest in yourself.
You truly get it. And it might not be quick, but you're going to get a return in investment. And two, I think I would love to see people spend more time teaching kids that life's going to be hard.
Really?
I mean,
Yeah.
it's going to be.
Life
Yeah.
is hard.
Yep.
Yeah. I actually recently shot a podcast with Dr. Patty Gorham, and that was literally like, she's like, life is hard. Once you accept that, then you can figure out what you're doing next.
You can. Life
Yeah.
is very hard, but the time you spend on your education, no matter what you do, is great time. And so,
Yeah. It's that resilience.
Oh.
It's that getting up early, feeding the calf. It's those things. But you have to have that, I think, to be a good investor in the future, in your finances and all of that. It's the resilience. It's doing the hard thing.
doing the hard thing. And we had talked earlier, I didn't go to college till I was 25. And literally, I probably grew up a little slow. I did not need to go to college till I was 25.
Right.
But I also had my son when I was 25.
Okay.
And so my wife worked nights and evenings. So my 2 boys give each other a hard time. The youngest one tells the oldest one he had to go to college twice, because he went once with me because I carried him. I had a book bag, a diaper bag, a kid, and I went to school with him
Wow.
every day when I was in college. And so I carried him around and changed him between classes. And so their joke now is, hey, you had to go to college twice. He went once when he was little.
The first time
He
through?
did not, but I did. So
There's so many people that would never do that. What pushed you to do that?
life is hard. You better
Life
figure
is
out.
hard.
You better figure
Yeah.
out how to make it work. But there were great, impactful people that provided the education. It was like, if I'm going to get to where I want to be, I have to have the education. And I think that's what really pushed me to be a lifelong learner.
Right.
And so lifelong learning is going to win in the long run. And hopefully the impacts we make on the kids early, i.e. the teachers, is going to really impact them to want to be lifelong learners.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
You don't happen to have any pictures of you and your little guy during that time, do you?
You know, I'm sure they're out there.
I would love to see, like, your backpack and your diaper bag and a kid on the hip as you head into your college class.
I remember English Comp 1. I cannot remember that instructor. He was a graduate assistant. And he goes, "Hey," he goes, "get up here and write your son's name on the board." He goes, "That's going to be the first time you ever wrote your son's name." And it was like, that's actually pretty cool.
That is cool.
And then he did his lesson based on that. And lots of people really paid attention. And so, again, how your educator is so impactful on what you do. And so, really cool deal. Yeah.
I mean, you invested in yourself.
Oh, yeah. You got to invest in yourself.
Which in return invested in your children and your family. And I'm sure that made a significant difference in your life.
Oh, completely. I agree with that 100%. So
that's a really cool story. I haven't known anybody that's taken kid,
Didn't see a lot of them.
I bet you didn't. And pretty cool too that your professors were all willing.
They were all very nice, you know, and they were like, "Hey, is he going to be loud?" And I'm like, "No." And he was just always a good kid, so I got lucky there. But yeah, he was just easy to deal with.
I have seen in some social media clips recently where there'll be a clip that goes viral where a professor is like holding a baby because a student came to class and they didn't have childcare.
Yeah.
So I know it happens occasionally, but to do it for like, this is my life, and if I want this degree, this is what I have to do.
Get there.
Yeah, that's a pretty cool story. So the next question I have is, teachers and principals often serve as CFOs of their own lives on a teacher salary. And we all know that is not a lot of money. It's just the way it is. What pay your future self system have you actually seen that works?
Boy, that's a great question. And it makes me think, one of my teachers in high school had a lawn company in the summertime.
Yes.
And so you can tell they enjoyed it, but it also funded a lot of what they did in life. And so it's kind of like that lifelong learning. Your commitment in yourself, whether it's inside the classroom or outside the classroom, is going to be the same. But that's a really tough question.
It is tough. But it is what our educators are facing because they don't make a huge salary.
Yep.
But then at some point they're not going to be doing that. So I mean, we do have good teacher retirement. So there's that.
Oh yeah, they have good retirement.
But how do we get ahead as teachers? And what system could we use to get ahead?
I go back to my money management concept, and it's not always managing the money you've got, but are you spending the money you got on appreciable assets? So if if they're going to do something, do the investment in that,
right?
And maybe they could create the game to play in class and sell it.
I like that idea.
You're a serial entrepreneur. You got to do that. So.
And honestly, that's a lot of teachers do.
Oh,
a lot of teachers create curriculum and they sell that. They do a lot of things like that. So I think their minds are there.
Oh, I think their minds are.
They're passionate about what they do. So this is the career they've chosen, but then they think beyond the classroom when they're thinking about getting ahead financially.
I'm gonna have to really put some thought to that question.
We might circle back to it. You might come with an epiphany, and then all the teachers are going to want to listen so they can invest.
I'm going to work on that one. So.
Okay. So my next question is, in communities with fewer resources, what specific challenges, match savings, secured card savings account, like what things have you seen that have made the most impact to make the biggest change when you have a community that has fewer resources?
I think fewer resources make you be more committed to the kids you truly know because you know them deeply. And so I think when you do that fundraiser type scenario, it's a different concept when little Sarah or Jimmy or whatever, and it makes that very, very personal.
Yes.
And so when you see that personal concept with the kids, I think it's just really working that resource. At any level, you've got to go find out where your resources are and utilize that. And so.
And you know what I keep hearing, Mike? You keep weaving it in, and it's that investment in the community, investment in the real reason you do what you do.
It's 100% the reason why you do what you do. But again, when you invest in your community is going to invest in you. And so
Sure.
I think the more you put in, and sometimes it's hard because it's like that 2% interest. You put that in, you don't see it for a long time. It's like your uncle was telling you, if you put it in, you're going to see it when you retire. Well, that's 30, 40 years or more.
It was so far away, but now I'm here.
Right,
I'm at the mark he talked about.
Right. But it's that also that little investment in your community or your
Yes.
time that a lot of times you don't really think about when it's happening.
Yes.
But what does it really do for you over time? And so I think that's the key.
And I only know you from your bank, but I'm assuming because you are the head that the culture runs strong. And what I hear from you is you care.
Yeah, and from a culture standpoint, we had our employees focus on creating our culture, and then they reinforce that culture. And they'll sit there and say, "Hey, we normally do things this way, but I saw you do this. Why aren't we doing that?" And helps open conversation to maintain that culture. And
Right.
sometimes open conversation's tough, but
Yeah,
if you
for
can
sure.
get over the hump of tough, it's real. So.
Mhm. If a district wanted a 90-day financial literacy sprint,
Ooh.
how would your bank partner with no buzzwords, but just the first steps that they would do, that they want 90-day, we need to hit this finances. What would your bank do?
So, I mentioned that we're doing a financial education series, and we started with things as small as savings account. Then we moved to credit. We moved to building your family and buying a home or starting a business. I think that would be our deal. It would be, how do you start small and add in, you start small with a savings account, then you take your checking account, and how do you manage that money? And then how do you spend that money to buy your home? And it would be a building effect over a 90-day period that started with small money and turned into what you do with it to get through life, so the kids can see, okay, this 90 days is really your lifespan. And over time,
Yeah.
you've got retirement, you've got buying a home, you've got everything in there that gets you from point A to point B. That'd be the 90-day program that I would tell
Yeah.
people to do, is start here and build on it every time. And it's through the course of your life, so to speak.
So I have a question that it might be difficult to answer, but do you think that schools understand how to protect their finances and invest in things more like a business?
To some extent, yes.
Okay.
And the reason I say to some extent, I think they have a budget that they get given.
Sure.
And so it's not that they can alter that really, and it's not that they can turn that into something that makes money.
Mhm.
But by the same token, any excess funds they have, they invest that, whether it's buying CDs or whatever, until they have a big project they're going to spend money on. So I think they have to run the district very much like it's a business.
Okay.
And I think that's just part of it. And so I'll give you a prime example. When I was the PTO president of Village School in Emporia, our principal started an after school program, and you had to pay. It was like daycare, but he turned it into a business that raised money for
For the
his school. And so it was like, okay, he came up with this idea, and that's how he paid for extra programs and things like that. And it was a great scenario, but you got to see the impact of it. But that was a perfect example for me of how a school turned it into a little something more.
A couple years back, I got to go and visit with a gentleman that was in the Chicago area, and he was a superintendent of a district. And he had done a concept like that. And so I knew he did it, but I was like, I don't really know if other schools. And what he did was he built a community center. It was the gym, and it was the swimming pool and all of that kind of stuff. And then they allowed different companies to rent the space, or that you could buy a membership and you could participate in it, and it became a revenue source for the district. And so
I like
it
that.
all ended up being paid for, and then they had a revenue stream of extra monies within their budget that they could earmark towards what their needs were that maybe the budget didn't cover.
Yeah, that's awesome. I love
Yeah,
that.
so I'm like, I just don't know because,
Yeah,
as a teacher, I didn't get into that side of things.
right.
So I just kind of wondered from your perspective,
That
you
would
see.
be a great concept.
Yeah.
build a new gym or fitness facility, and now the public can buy a membership and they can go as well.
Yes.
That'd be really cool.
It seemed to be working. They were doing really well in that district. So this is a little bit different of a question, but I want to know the biggest money myth you keep hearing from teens.
Oh, biggest money myth. I will honestly tell you, I don't know if it's a myth, but I hear a lot of young people that feel like they're going to make a lot of money on social media.
Yes.
And in my opinion, making money on social media is kind of like becoming LeBron James. There's only 1 or 2% that actually get to be the
Right.
professional athlete. I'm going to make the assumption there's a pretty small percentage that actually make a great living doing that. Now, I think there are people that do it. And, but again, goes back to the deal. You better be a lifelong learner. You better figure out how you're willing to work hard to get there, because nothing's just easy. And so, but I think that would be my deal. Is they think there's just a lot of easy money in the world, and I'm going to go do this or I'm going to go do that, and everything in life is actually hard.
I think you probably hit on the biggest myth. That's what I hear when I work with students, that they're all going to make their living off of social media.
Oh yeah.
I mean, you have a few that pick, like, I'm going to be a doctor, but a lot of students think the best way they're going to make their money. And I agree. I don't know what the percentage is of people that actually do that successfully.
And I don't know what the percent is either, but I guarantee you it's harder than most people think.
Oh, yeah. I mean, you're having to post multiple times a day and keep up the study. You have to be organized. I mean, there's a lot of work ethic that goes into translating to making a lot of money on social media.
Money on it.
Yeah. I think that was a good answer. Might have been tough to come up with, but you did it.
I hope so. I don't know. We'll see.
What's the first money move a new teacher should make if they're starting out right now?
A new teacher.
A new teacher.
I think the money move for a teacher, in my opinion, would be, how are you going to invest to get the outcomes from your kids? And so maybe an investment in something they're going to have in class, whatever that may be. I mean, I know a lot of teachers will have a hedgehog or a cat or something in class, and it's like, okay, I'm going to teach you how to take care of something and have responsibility. And I think if they would invest in something, that's what I would. If I was going to be a teacher, I'd invest in something, and it wouldn't be a hedgehog, but it'd be, what could we do to make money over time, or what could we do to teach something that I can teach over and over and over again, year after year, but it's an initial investment for me as a teacher.
I love that. Is there anything that you can think of that you wish districts or teachers knew that we just don't know enough about when it comes to the resources with our financial institution?
I would tell you, if the teachers would reach out to the banks and say, hey, will you come help teach a section of money management? I would tell you a vast majority of banks, especially your community banks, would go do that.
Okay. Yeah, I never thought of that as a resource.
Yeah, I mean, I guarantee you, if they came to us, we would pick a number of our personal bankers or lenders, or even, I mean, really, our IT people could go teach something, and it truly has that. Or our CFO could go teach something. I mean, so everything within operations is viable in that. I mean, there's a lot of technology. There's a lot of behind the scenes. So I think just reaching out to your banks and saying, hey, would you help us teach this class? Because it goes back to that concept. You probably listened to your uncle more than you did your mom or dad.
Yeah, for sure.
And so, I mean, because you can tell that was very impactful for you.
Yeah.
And so if you reach out to those people and say, hey, we want somebody from the outside so they'll get a different perspective and make it impactful for them, that's what I would do.
I like that. So my question is, what is ESB Bank doing to make sure that there is financial freedom for people?
So, we have started our education series, and we started it very basic, and it started with savings and went to investments. Then we went to how to manage your credit. Then we moved that on into how do you buy your first home. 2 weeks ago, we did start your own business. And we have helped teach the Start Your Own Business class in Emporia for 20 plus years. And that's been a great deal for young entrepreneurs. And then we moved it on into our trust services, which are how you manage your assets over time, even after you pass away, and how that's managed. And so that education series just continues. And then usually once a year, sometimes twice a year, we bring in speakers. So we've got a speaker coming in the next couple weeks, first part of November, that's just ag economist. And it's for our farm and ranch community to listen to an ag economist. So to me, it goes back to lifelong learning. You start in school and you work all the way through that, and then you invest that in your community over time. So lifelong learning is just that. The kids learn through school what they get at their actual school district, and then it goes through into the series like we're talking about. How do you manage that money? How do you build your credit? How do you buy your home? How do you build assets over time? That's kind of what we're focused on as far as education.
Yeah, I love that series because I learned how to buy my first home because I watched my parents buy homes.
Yep.
So I got that one.
Yep.
But my parents weren't worried about their credit score. It was different. It was different.
It was very different back
And so I kind of was at a loss. Like I didn't know what to do. So I love that you're offering that. Is that something you offer community or just?
No, it's in our community as a whole, and we let anybody sign up, and we've had really good response to it.
I would assume.
Yeah, it's done very, very well for us. And so the Start Your Own Business class, that's paired with our local Main Street and the Tech College. We've done it through the combination of all of that, and it's actually a series that goes through, and we have helped start a lot of new businesses from that.
Yeah.
And so we teach the financial portion, and then a lot of times those people come to us and say, okay, we're ready to start our business. And I mean, literally everything from storefronts to food trucks to all kinds of stuff. And so it's been kind of a cool series.
Like, what's the youngest age that you would think that could benefit from learning how to start your own business?
Oh, I think that could be started really, really early.
Okay.
I mean, 10, 12 years old.
I mean, I guess your grandfather did it with you and your bucket calves.
He fully did. And so if you start that and you let them learn really, really young, and I mean, some kids, when I was younger, you had to buy your paper route. And so when Johnny was a senior in high school, he sold it to some young kid, and you went out and you bought your paper route. I mean, there were all kinds of things like that. And so,
so we can teach kids young about business.
I think if you teach them young and you get the education behind it, I think it goes for your life.
I have one last question for you.
Okay.
You said you are a lifelong learner. Did you have a teacher that made a huge impact in your life?
Yeah, probably. That's a tough one because I had several good ones, but just to say I had one that was this major impact is probably not what I would pick. It would probably be several for several reasons.
Yeah.
One maybe in education and one in shop class, or I mean, things like that. So I would say definitely there was, but it was probably ones that were patient with me at the time.
Yeah.
Because I was never a great student. It's always meant I'd rather be out here doing something, playing in the creek or feeding my bucket calf than I was actually being in class. And so, yeah, I think there were probably, I would say, several that were impactful that you really enjoyed, that you could tell were putting a lot of effort into you. And so had some in college that were really, really impactful.
Well, I just want to say thank you for what you're doing in your community, and
We hope it works.
yes, and being willing to step in and educate kids, teachers, districts. I think that's a great resource that we don't always realize in education we could tap into.
Oh, I think it should be easily tapped into. I think it's a great thought process.
I never thought of it, but I am going to be sharing it. The one thing I love about doing these podcasts is I learn, and then I get to take it and share it with somebody else. So
well, I guarantee you, one of my takeaways from this is, okay, maybe you go sponsor this event and say, okay, we're going to help you provide a different return. If the kids will raise this much money, we'll give them like the equivalent of X amount of interest.
Yeah.
And I think that's a cool thought process. So that's my learn from doing
okay.
So.
I think we're going to have to sit down and have some coffee sometime and collaborate and come up with a game.
Yep.
and another way to teach students about
I
finances.
really want that money island back, but I haven't figured out how to make it worthwhile. So, yeah.
Well, thank you for your time. I appreciate it so much, and it's been a great conversation.
Been a great conversation. Appreciate the time.
Absolutely.
Thanks for listening to Queued Up. Follow and subscribe to stay queued up for what's next.